One for the blood god.
How you going, guys? Dean from Blog for the Blood God here, and I've got a three-part video series for you, which is going to be a recap / review of the Menza Open tournament, which I attended last weekend and won these two beautiful trophies. So I'm going to go through, in the first part, I'm going to go through the actual format for the tournament. So the mission format, the list writing format, because they use the Menza tri-board format, which is quite different. So I'll go through that. I'll also go through some of the other bits and pieces, just general stuff about the tournament, and then I'll go through the list that I brought. Then in the second part of the series, I'm going to go through the first 3 games. I'm going to go through the opponents that I faced, the mission that we did, their list, the way the game played out, what tactics I used, what worked, what didn't work. And then in the third video, I'm going to go through this next 3 games, because it was 6 in total. And I'll go through the same thing on those. So you'll get 3 parts. The first will be the intro, second will be the first 3 games on the first day, and then the third will be the last 3 games. So basically that's what we're going to go through. So this is going to be the first video. Now, little disclaimer at the start, I have to apologize. It's Halloween tonight, so you might hear the occasional doorbell go off. I've got somebody on door duty, so I'm not going to get interrupted, but we might hear it. And we're also going to hear the dogs barking like crazy because there's going to be kids and shit going on everywhere. So apologies in advance for that. Just ignore the shit going on in the background. And also apologies for looking at my ugly face, but I figured it'd be a little bit more entertaining than just having a list up on the screen. So first thing I'm going to go through with you is what was the Menza Open. And I'm going to try and not break my little setup as I do it. Okay, so the Menza Open was essentially a 1350 point Warhammer 40k tournament. It was held in Victoria, and a lot of Victorian tournaments use the community comp document. However, the Menza Open did not use that document. It was just pure, unadulterated 40k. So it was 1350 points. There was a few rules in there, like you were limited to a single super heavy. D strength shooting attacks were slightly nerfed in the way that a 6 did D3 hull points instead of 6 plus D6. They just dialed it back a little bit. Invisibility, instead of its normal rules, it basically just made your opponent's weapon skill and ballistic skill 1. So you could still get hit by templates and still get, or hit on 5s in combat instead of 6s. So it brought that into a more controllable level of power. And the other one, there was a few of the new Astartes powers that they either didn't allow, like the one that allows you to pick up a train and move it. They cancelled that. That's banned. And they also had the soul switch power, where you can swap with another unit. They made it that you couldn't charge after doing that. So you can still use the power, but they just took away that ability to charge straight after, because that made it a little bit too powerful, they felt, which I agree with. So that was the mission. That was the changes to the rules that they had. The other one that they did, that was, actually I should also say there was a tournament with about 25 people. It was some of the top players in Victoria, so there was quite a few very competitive and very strong players at this event. It was very, I'm going to say competitive. It was a very competitive environment. So it was one of the more rough tournaments that I've attended. So going in there, I went in there fully expecting to lose all 6 of my games, because I generally don't play super competitively. I'm more of a fluff gamer in my own casual games. I only ever really play that competitive when I'm at a tournament. So I'm not experienced at it. When me and my mates play, we just play for fun. So I wasn't expecting to do very well, because there were so many of the big names in Victorian 40k at this event. So I was kind of expecting to get smashed. So it was also, because they weren't using the comp document, it was the lists were those crazy Super Friends Death Stars, or lots and lots of Tau Riptides. It was those kinds of lists that everybody dreads facing, but everybody had those lists. So it was a lot of unstoppable forces meeting immovable objects and craziness. But it was fucking awesome fun. So before I get into it all, I just want to say it was a fantastic tournament. I had a fucking awesome time. And if you ever see an event held by the guys at Menza Gaming, definitely check it out because that was a really fun, really well run event. So the main thing that they did in this tournament that I've never seen done in another tournament, and I think personally it was fantastic. A lot of people hated it. And I think it's also the reason that we only had 25 attendees instead of, the 30, 40, 50, 60 or whatever, was they did what they call the Menza tri-board format, which you can probably see up on the screen there. So what that is basically, it was a 1350 point tournament. What you did is you made a 1,000 point army, and then you did 3 350 point sideboards. So you had 4 pages for your army list. There was your core list, and then there was your 3 sideboards. And then basically what you do at the start of each game is you'd hand your opponent all 4 of those sheets. They'd hand you all 4 of theirs, and you'd review their list. Then you'd hand your sheets back, and then what you'd do is you'd pick one of your 3 sideboards that you think is going to best help counter your opponent's army, and then they'd pick one of their 3, and then you should play with that. So it gave you the flexibility to change your list to a degree between games and tailor to what your opponent brought. So a smart player would make sure that they have a core list that's capable of being your all-comers list, something that can capture objectives, it can fight, this, that, and whatever. And then you make a sideboard for each specialty. So if he's got an Imperial Knight, you bring the sideboard that has all your drop pod melter guns, Or if he's got flyers, you bring a sideboard that has your anti-aircraft, So you can tailor to match what your opponent brings, but they can do the same to you. So you've got to also be careful when you're writing your list because you want to make sure that you're putting your heavily counterable things in your sideboards. So you might have a core list that's just a bunch of Space Marines, for example. No real major thing there. But then in your sideboard, you have one with an Imperial Knight, one with a couple of flyers, and then one with a bunch of Psychers. So you've got, if they want to try and counter you, they don't necessarily want to bring their anti-flyer counter because you might not use your flyers. They don't want to bring their Imperial Knight one because you might not use it. So then you get this sort of psychological game before the game even begins you've got to try and psych your opponent out and convince them, I'm going to bring my knights, you better bring your melter guns, and then they bring their melter guns, but you bring your flyers and laugh at them. So it adds a whole new dimension to the game. And so basically it was a little confusing for me at the start. And I think a lot of people were put off the tournament because of that early stage confusion. But the guys at Menza did a couple of videos explaining specifics on how to write that list and how it all works. And after you watch those videos, it was a lot easier to understand. So if I do a bad job of explaining it, head over to their website, which is menzagaming.net, and you can look it up, the Menza tri-board format. And they have videos about it, or you can check it on the YouTube channel or whatever. But basically, with your 1,000 point list, that has to have your primary detachment in it. And then you have to, when you're building that, you have to stop at 1,000 points. And then your sideboards are 350. You can't have your core list of 1,050 and then a 300 point sideboard. You've got to spend it to 1,000 and then in 350. That being said, in your sideboard, you can take additional units in your primary detachment. So you could take, say, combined arms detachment in your core and spend 1,000 points, and then spend 350 points with more heavy support in that detachment. So you can add to it. It doesn't have to be an independent formation or independent detachment. You can add units to a primary detachment, but what you can't do is add upgrades or extra models to a unit. So you can't go, I've got a unit of 5 tactical marines, but in this sideboard I have another 5 guys in that unit. You can put another unit in, but you can't add 2 existing units. So I think once we had all those extra little bits and pieces, a lot of people just went, you know what, writing a competitive list for a tournament is hard enough already. And this made it that tiniest bit harder, and a lot of people just went, nah, I'm too fucking lazy. Whereas me, I saw the challenge and I was like, you know what, that sounds different, that sounds fun, I'm going to give it a go. The other rule was that you didn't have to run sideboards. If you chose not to, you got to either have +1 to your seize the initiative, or you could choose 2 warlord traits instead of 1. So that balanced it out a bit because some players, they didn't want to take sideboards, it's too confusing, it's too much going on, so they could just run it without it, and they still got a benefit. Because obviously taking sideboards is a massive benefit because it gives you the opportunity to counter your opponent. So they got a benefit as well. And for some armies, there was a couple of guys there that I was talking to who intentionally didn't bring sideboards because they wanted that +1 to the seize, because for their army, going first is the deal breaker. You know, if they go first, they win. If they don't, they lose. So a lot of people went, you know what, screw the sideboards. I really want that first turn. And it played out quite well for some of them. I ran sideboards and I won my first 3 games. In each one of those, I used a different sideboard. So that really illustrated how diverse the sideboards can be and how well that can help you in a game. So yeah, so that's basically, that was the tournament. That was a bit about sideboards. I've touched on sideboards. And as for the missions, so the missions, every single mission was the same. All 6 games, you had the same mission. And that was a modified ATC mission. So what that is it stands for Australian Team Challenge, because they're the blokes that came up with it. I believe that's why it's called that. And basically, the ATC format is a combination of Maelstrom of War, Eternal War, and Kill Point Differential. So the way that works is you've got your Maelstrom of War cleansing control for every game. So you draw 3 cards. You can only score up to 2 per turn. So if you hold all 3 objectives, for example, you can only score 2. So for that third one, you pick whichever one you think you can convincingly get next turn, and you go, I'm going to hang on to that. I'm going to score these 2, and then next turn I'll score that third one. So yeah, the Maelstrom of War, you get 3 cards. You can score up to 2, and any of them that are D3 are just 2. So they just assume you've rolled a 2 instead of leaving that much of it up to chance. That's just a flat 2. So that's the Maelstrom of War component. You, just like a normal game, you generate those victory points throughout the game. So you just keep your cards. Then the next is Kill Point Differential. And the way that works is basically at the end of the game, you tally up how many kill points you got, how many your opponent got, and then whoever got more gets the difference in victory points. So if I've killed 12 guys and you killed 6, I would get 6 victory points because I got 6 more units than you did. So I'd get 6 victory points, you'd get none. So you get your Maelstrom cards plus your kill point differential plus the Eternal War, which is each objective marker that you place, because you obviously place your 6 Maelstrom markers. And objectives number 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all worth 3 victory points at the end of the game, just like Eternal War. So you get your total of all your Maelstrom cards, your kill point differential, and your Eternal War. That's your total victory points. And then your opponent tallies up all of his, that's his total. Whoever has the highest total wins the game. So it's a very, very thorough and very, very fair way to do it. And the reason I say that is because there are some armies out there that are going to absolutely dominate at kill points. They might have a single Imperial Knight, and they might have 2 units of 10 Paladins and a Grey Knight. Chapter Master, or whatever it's called, Grandmaster, right? 4 kill points total. and then he might go up against a guard army or a battle demi company or a summoning demon army, and they're going to have 50 kill points on the table, and there's zero chance of them winning the game because all that Grey Knights guy has to do is kill 4 units, and he's just auto won as long as he doesn't get tabled. So kill points is it can be completely decided by the list. Same can be said for Maelstrom of War. If you take that same example and flip it on its head, you're going to have a Grey Knight guy with 4 units trying to capture objectives when that guy with summoning demons is just fucking everywhere, and the Grey Knight's guy doesn't stand a chance. So that's a good example there of where it can't be balanced and fair. You're leaving way too much of the decision on who wins up to what mission is played, So, and the only answer to that is saying, oh, well, you shouldn't run a 4-unit list and you shouldn't run a 50-unit list, but people should be able to do that. If that's the type of army that they wanted to play, then we should allow that. So how can we make a mission that's fair for no matter who you are? And that's why we combine them and do all of them at once. So if you've got an advantage in kill points, but I have an advantage in mission objectives, Maelstrom of War, we're going to come out roughly even because you're going to get more Maelstrom cards, but I'm going to get more kill points. So I'm going to meet somewhere in the middle. So yeah, I'm an advocate for the ATC format. Any game I play, that's my favorite way of doing it because it's so fucking fair. There's no advantage, There's nothing worse than when you roll your mission or you pick your army and you go find your opponent and you look at it and you go, I've lost already. Before the first dice roll, you go, I'm not going to win this. It's an uphill struggle. That sucks. I think every single game, no matter who your opponent is, you should be able to enter the game with equal chance of winning. It should be up to the way you play, not the list you play, and not the mission you play. It should be up to the way you play within those constraints. So ATC format does that really, really well. So yeah, so that's the ATC mission format, and then basically what they do is for your battle points, so you got your victory points, he got his victory points, that determines who wins the game, right? But the amount of battle points that you get, which determines your rank within the tournament, is based on a differential of victory points. So just like how we did a differential with kill points to figure out, obviously the more I kill, the more victory points I get. It's a similar mechanic with battle points where if I win with 11 victory points and you have 9, yes, I won, but it was a close game. So I might get 12 battle points and you might get 7. Whereas if I win with 20 victory points and you only got 1, it's still a win, but because I won by such a large margin, I get more battle points. And that I'm also a very big fan of because when you're playing a tournament where they just go, you know what, it's 15 points for a win, 10 points for a draw, and 5 points for a loss. There's no incentive to cream your opponent. You've just got to pull in and win. No matter how close the game is, as long as you just win, you're good. Whereas this format, you want to not only do you want to win, but you want to really fucking win because the points that you get in this game are going to impact the next. So if you only win by a small margin each game, if somebody else, say you win all 6 games, but they were all close, and somebody else wins all 6 games, but they thrash their opponent in all 6, they're going to get more battle points, and therefore they're going to come out on top in the tournament. So it helps prevent draws and ties, and it gives you more incentive to go, I'm not just going to go, oh, well, I've got 2 more victory points than you, so I'm just going to slow play and win the game. Because no, you don't want to just win. You want to get 10 more victory points than your opponent. So you want to keep playing and try and keep increasing your lead. And it encourages a lot more aggressive play style, I guess. So, yeah, so I've done tri-board format, mission objectives, tournaments, battle points. There was also a paint score element. So you got rating out of 25 points, I believe that was, for how well your army was painted and presented. And then there was also sportsman, which sportsman score was simply, it was a yes or a no. Did you like your opponent, or did he cheat, or was he a dick? You know, so I don't think anybody in the tournament actually got hit with a sportsman score. So yeah, that's basically the way the tournament worked. Now, for the last part of this, I'm going to go through my army list, and then I'm going to cut the video here, and then I'll go through games 1, 2, and 3 in a separate video, because otherwise you'd be sitting there for freaking ages listening to me talk. So you can see over on the right there, I believe it's right. It's right on the screen that I'm looking at, so I don't know what it's going to be on the published copy, but on the right, there's my mouse gone. There we go. Alright, so on the right there, you've got my list. Let's just find it down the bottom here. Alright. So you can see here I've got my primary detachment is a Cyclopia Cabal. So I've got Sorcerer with Mastery level 3, Power Fist, Force, Stave, Bike. He's my Warlord, and he has the Veterans of the Long War. Then my second sorcerer is pretty much the same, so he's Mastery level 3, Power Fist, Force Staff, Bike, and Veterans Long War. And then the third sorcerer is Mastery level 3, Power Fist, Force Staff, Bike, Spell Familiar, and Veterans Long War. Now he's the one that I did the majority of my casting with. Because he has that Spell Familiar, he can reroll his stuff. So I'd throw lots of dice at theirs to ensure that they pass, but he would be the one where I'd go, you know what, it's a Mastery level 2 spell, I'm just going to throw 2 dice at it and reroll if I fail. So then in the other detachment, so you can have multiple detachments in your core. So my primary detachment was the Cyclopia Cabal. Then I had an allied detachment of Khorne Demon King, and a Herald of Khorne with a Juggernaut, Loki of Wrath, 8 cultists, and 20 flesh hounds. So I think you can see where I'm going with this. There was 3 sorcerers, a herald on a juggernaut, and 20 flesh hounds all in one little Death Star. So that was my primary, or my core list, I should say. So that's the one that has to be in every single game. And then my sideboards get attached to this. So I went with Mastery level 3 sorcerers. It's pretty obvious, but I'll go through it anyway. Mastery level 3 is what you want, because if you've got 6 powers on a tree, say you want to go for endurance on Biomancy, you've got 6 potential powers and you get 3 rolls. So you roll all 3 of those, and then any duplicates you re-roll. So you've essentially got a 50-50 chance of getting endurance on with your first sorcerer, because he's guaranteed to get 3 of those 6 powers, so you have a 50-50 chance. Whereas if you take, like, just say instead of taking 3 level 3s, if I was to take 5 level 2s, each one of those level 2s has only got a 1 in 3 chance of getting that endurance, so you're less likely to get the powers that you want. So that's why I've gone with Mastery level 3s. Also because it's cheaper in points, because you're paying an extra 25 points for that 1 more Mastery level. Whereas if you just try and take more sorcerers, you got to pay 60 points just to get 1 Mastery level, and then you got to pay for the upgrades on top of that. Whereas here you can just go 25 points as an extra spell. Makes them a lot more points effective, I find. Then I gave them more bikes. That's so that they could go with the flesh hounds and keep up. Number 1, give them speed. Number 2, it gives them jink. So you can, if you get shrouded as a power, you can cast that, move your bikes to the front, and then you've got a 2+ jink save. So that's really good at protecting those flesh hounds. If you come up against a shit ton of fire warriors or something like that, and you know they're going to overwatch the fuck out of you, you go, you know what? I'm going to move into the front. I'm going to jink, and that's going to give me my 2-up save. And then if you get, I can't remember the name of it, there's one of the newer Astartes powers allows you to re-roll your saves. So you can make it a 2-up re-roll little jink. Pretty hard to get through that. That was actually one of the other things they changed in this tournament, sorry, that just reminded me. If you had ever a 2-up rerollable, the reroll is always on a 4. So instead of being a 2-up followed by another 2-up, that in order to prevent what I just said from happening, they made it a 2-up to a 4-up. So if I had the 2-up rerollable jink, and if I failed it, then it would be a 4-up jink. You can't get a 2-up followed by a 2-up. So that's the other reason for the bikes, was the jink. The next reason is because it does give you the twin link bolters, combi bolters, which you'd be surprised how often they can actually help. And it's why not? You know, like, whereas you give a jump pack, it's roughly the same points, and you're not getting that. And also it gives them that +1 toughness, which is really good in a challenge. There is one thing that I definitely would have changed in this list if I wasn't trying so hard to get a strong theme in my list, and that is, instead of having them all on bikes, I'd have one of them with a jump pack, because that way he can move his 6 inches, not use his jump pack, and then the entire unit can re-roll their charge range, which actually would have been really freaking helpful in this tournament, because I missed a few like 5-inch charge, which pissed me off. I was like, you know, because I've modelled my Cyclobuca to be all on bikes, and I've modelled them so that they'll fit in together on one big thing, I didn't want to go, yeah, this one's got a jump pack. I couldn't do it. I got OCD. I could not have one of the 5 different. It would just feel weird. So I went with the less competitive option in order to maintain my theme, which was all sorcerers on bikes. And then obviously the veterans of the long war, that's a mandatory. And then you're probably wondering, why Power Fist for staff? I thought about this a lot, and I decided on this, and now after the game I'm thinking that there might have been some slight more preferable options. The thought behind it is if an Imperial Knight or even an Armor 13, like a Venerable Dreadnought, runs into this Death Star, it's going to destroy everything, and there's not much I can do to stop it if I don't have those Power Fists. Because the Herald's is strength 7 on the charge, the Fleshhound's is strength 4 or 5 on the charge. You know, and if I didn't have Power Fists, you know, my highest strength is going to be 7. And that's not going to, an Armor 13 Dreadnought's just going to laugh. It's just going to freaking laugh. You know, so I thought, I mean, I could have put a simple Melter Bomb on one of them, but I just thought, you know, if somebody throws an Imperial Knight into me, I don't want to just sit there for 6 rounds of combat while it stomps out my Death Star. So I needed something built into the Death Star that would be able to combat Knights. So what I thought is Power Fists on the Sorcerers, and then if you use Hammer Hand as a power, you've got Strength 10. So 3 Sorcerers putting out Strength 10, AP 2, against the Knight, you'd be hitting on 3s. I'm like, that should be enough to discourage somebody from charging their Knight in. And enough that if I want to, I can charge their Knight and put the Fleshhounds at the front so that their D-strength attacks are taking away Fleshhounds, and then the Sorcerers pile in and punch the fuck out of it. So that's why I went with the Power Fists. I felt that it just was that contingency against those heavy walkers that just had to be in the list. Had to be. Then the decision on which force weapon to take. I thought, okay, well, I've got Power Fist, so a Force Axe is kind of redundant, because if I want to strike at Initiative 1, I'd rather do it at Strength 10 AP 2 than at Strength 6 or 5. You know, like, the Force Axe is essentially the weaker version of the Power Fist, so didn't really need the Force Axe. So then it was between the Force Staff and the Force Sword, and I thought, okay, either way you're going to strike at Initiative, so that's the same. But if I take the Force Staff, that's +2 strength. So if I can combine that with Hammer Hand, now I'm strength 8, which is going to be wounding pretty much anything on 2s. So I thought wounding on 2s and they get maybe a 3+ armor save, for me is roughly comparable to wounding on a 4 and then not getting a save. I know it's slightly better with the Power Sword, but that's only against something with 3-up armor save. Anything with 4-up, the Force Maul, or the Force Maul or Force Staff is infinitely better. And anything with a 2-up save, Power Fist is going to be better. So really, the sword is only better against one specific type, whereas the Force Maul has a lot of uses. It can also be, like I said, it can be strength 8, so you can use it as an anti-tank. You know, instead of using your power fist and getting your initiative 1 stuff, if you go up against an armor 12 Walker, you might go, you know what, I'm going to throw all these power mauls at you, and I'm going to strike you with the same initiative, or maybe even before you, and be much more likely to take you out. So that's why I went with the Force Mauls. So I still feel that that is the optimal choice. That being said, I didn't get into combat with a single armor 13 Walker in the entire tournament. So going away from that, I'm thinking, well, did I need those power fists? Would I have been better off saving that 25 points from the power fist and just giving them a Force Axe? You know, and spending that 25 points elsewhere. Knowing me though, if I had done that, I would have got into combat with a freaking Imperial Knight. So I still think that it's something that needs to be in there, simply because when you're running a Death Star list, you don't want it to be like a proper Death Star where it had that one weakness that fucked it. You know, you need to make sure that you plug every single weakness so that it's unstoppable. That's what makes a good Death Star, and those power fists are part of that. So that's why I've got the power fists in the power fists and the Force Staff. Also worth noting on that AP3 comment is if I do go up against something that's AP3 and I'm deciding, oh, do I use my power fist or my Force Staff? I use the Herald, because he's initiative 7 or 6, I can't remember now. Should look that up. So he's high initiative, AP3, high strength, high weapon skill. If I get into combat and there's a character in there that wants to issue a challenge, I'll accept it with the Juggernaut, you know, with the Herald, and he'll smash him. So really, he's the tank for taking any challenges from anything that's not 2-up armor. And if it's 2-up armor, I'll throw a Sorcerer's Power Fist at it. But yeah, anything other than 2-up, the Herald will take him. So with that being said, then you definitely don't need powers. You definitely don't need Force Swords, because you've got an awesome sword in there already. And then the Herald, he's on the Juggernaut. Juggernaut just makes him that little bit beefier, a little bit more tanked up, and it also allows him to keep up with the Death Star instead of lagging behind. And I've given him the Exalted Loki of Wrath, because that gives the entire Death Star hatred, which I cannot stress enough how important that is. That increases the damage of the whole Death Star by 25%. And when you've got this many guys, 25% is a significant increase. That's not just an extra 3 attacks. You know, if you've got Flesh Hounds with 3 attacks on the charge, if you can increase that by 25%, you've just got 60 attacks has just turned into 80. You know, no, don't look that math up. Yeah, but either way, the point is that that hatred is crucial. I looked into some of the upgrades that you can potentially give the Herald, but none of them really struck me as necessary. There's the Blade of Bloodshed, where every time you kill somebody in a challenge, you get an extra blood tithe point. Didn't really see that as something that was necessary. And yeah, the other ones for him are just, they're kind of lackluster. There's the Crown, where every 6 he rolls, he gets another attack, and it's like, that's a lot of points to spend on a Herald in a Death Star that's already putting out massive amounts of damage. You don't really need to buff him. I think that would be unnecessary. So you're better off going with the Force multipliers, like your mastery levels and stuff like that. So that's the core list, and that core list creates the base of my Death Star. So the 3 Sorcerers, the Herald, jump in with the Hounds, and then the unit of Cultists. Almost every game I held them in reserves, so that turn 1, the only target my opponent had was the Death Star. And then that would run forward, do its thing, and then later in the game, the Cultists would come on and then just jump onto whatever objective it was that I needed. That was their job. And their job was to basically not give my opponent first blood. Whereas if you deploy your Cultists, they're just going to go, easy kill point, first blood, victory point for them, and you're already behind. So that's why the Cultists will almost always start in reserves, and the the rest of it's just the pure Death Star. And so I'll go through the spells that I roll up in a moment. I'll go through my sideboards first. So looking at this, I knew that there was a few significant weaknesses to it. So I wanted to try and figure out how I could enhance them. So the first sideboard I went with was a Renegade Knight with a Melter Gun, Thunderstrike Gauntlet, and Reaper Chainsaw. Now, I would have liked to have given him a gun, but all of the guns would have put him over the 350 point limit. So literally, if you want an Imperial Knight or a Renegade Knight in your sideboard, the only way you could do it was with the 2 close combat weapons, which is fine because I'm actually a really big fan of the 2 close combat weapon. He's the cheapest, and a lot of people think that they're least powerful because obviously the shooting weapons are fantastic. But the best thing about him is he encourages you to play really aggressively. And that ties in well with my Death Star. Because when you've got 2 units coming at you, one's a Knight and one's a Death Star, your opponent's got 2 massive threats that they have to deal with. Whereas if you have one with twin Gatling guns and you have him sitting back in the corner and then you run your Death Star at, your opponent can look at it and go, well, the Death Star is the immediate threat, kill it. I'll deal with the Knight later. It's not immediately threatening my army. So, yeah, it's give and take, but I found that, yeah, having that additional big threat was very useful. He also, I like to call him a bomb, simply because you run him in, he's going to do a bunch of damage when he gets in there, and then since he's in close combat, if he does die, he creates that catastrophic explosion. And he also stomps like crazy. So he was my main answer to other Death Stars, because I know there are a lot of really powerful Imperial Death Stars out there. You know, Iron Hands guys with 2-up rerollable Feel No Pain, with 4-up rerollable invulnerable saves, and you know, all of that sort of stuff that you can get. I was like, I don't want Necron ones that are crazy. I was like, nah, if I come up against another Death Star that I think is going to trump mine, that's where the Knight comes in. And then you throw the Knight into their Death Star and they can kill it. Go for it, because it's going to catastrophic explosion and it's going to blow you up. And also, if you don't kill it, it's going to stomp, and stomps are the single best way I find to take out a Death Star, because if you put that blast marker over him and roll a 6, it's just removed from play. No reanimation protocols, no Feel No Pain, no invulnerable saves, get the fuck out of here. You know, so the Imperial Knight giving the stomps, plus obviously Strength D helps a lot as well. But yeah, so your stomps, your Strength D, catastrophic explosion, which if he's in combat, they're all wrapped around him. That goes boom. It's going to hit all. So he was my, if I see somebody and I'm like, your Death Star's fucking cheesy, I'm going to throw a Knight at it. And also, a lot of people, you look at their lists and they don't necessarily have enough firepower to combat a Knight reliably. So if I see that that's their weakness, I'll expose it by running my Knight. But if you come up against somebody who's got significant anti-tank, you don't run the Knight. So that's where my next sideboards come into it. So this sideboard was a Cult of Destruction, which is the Traitor's Hate formation that allows you to, one of your obliterator units can essentially fire 2 sets of weapons instead of 1. So I had Warpsmith with Burning Brand of Scalafrax and 3 single obliterators. Now, this one was actually a counter to a Selexis Assassin, because he's the biggest counter to any Psychic Death Star. Because basically all he has to do is get within 12 inches of you, and all your powers are stripped away, and then your opponent can charge you, and your Death Star is a marshmallow. You know, it's soft. So I think that I knew that if I come up against a Selexis, I need to kill it before it can get within 12 inches of me. And how are you going to do that? You need shooting. But my army was themed around a Death Star, so I needed a 350 point sideboard that would bring enough shooting to drop a Selexis. So I thought, well, his weakness is that he's toughness 4, and he's only got a 4-up invulnerable save. So if I can get enough strength 8 shooting into him, I can drop him. And then trying to find a Chaos Space Marine detachment that fits in 350 points that brings a lot of Strength 8 shooting, I thought the best way to go is the Obliterators. Because not only do they bring Strength 8 shooting, but they're Strength 8 power fists in combat. So I could move them all forward, shoot at him, and if somehow he survives, I'll throw all three at him and charge him. And if he doesn't kill all three, the surviving one's going to power fist and take him down. So I thought this formation, even though I am dedicating 350 points to my army to counter 140 points of theirs, it's worth it because that 140 points of theirs can nullify all 1,000 points of my core. So he was a definite must stop him. And also it doubles as a lot of things because also I've got the Burning Brand of Scalathrax. The Obliterators have heavy flamers and assault cannons. So there's a lot of anti-horde in there as well, because that's another thing that can really fuck up a Death Star. It's just a massive blob of fearless guys charging my Death Star, and they can just hold it up for the entire game. And then any other units they have run around pick up objectives. So the Obliterators help out with that. They also help out with my ranged anti-tank. Like if I was to go up against a demi company and everyone was sitting back in their rhinos, I know that that's going to be an uphill battle for me because I'm going to run my Death Star over, engage the rhinos, blow up the rhinos, the guys fall out, they run away, I chase them down, they split up and scatter all over the place, and then I've got the Death Star in the middle that has to then split up. And yeah, I thought I need a way of popping those transports early so that the Death Star can get to them. So the Obliterators filled that hole as well. So they're just such a versatile unit. I fucking love Obliterators. They are really good. And they're also a really good bully unit. So you deep strike it, you can deep strike it into their backfield, one Obliterator off in this corner, one off in that corner, and then all of a sudden your opponent has all of these threats that they have to deal with, but they're only 70-point units. So they might have to turn a 150-point unit around to fire a 70-point unit. Meanwhile, my Death Star's coming at them, you know? But if they ignore that 70-point unit and just focus everything on my Death Star, that 70-point unit is now going to get into combat with your Land Raider or your whatever and blow it up. So you have to deal with the 70-point unit. So it really forces your opponent to make some really difficult decisions, and it's frustrating for them because they want to be doing one thing, but you're forcing their hand and you're forcing them to do another thing, which is immensely powerful. So anytime that you can get in your opponent's head and dictate what they do, you've got the game in the bag because you're now playing their army. So the Obliterator Cult of Destruction is a very useful. I also have the ability there with the Warpsmith to put him in the Death Star if I want to, and that puts a guy in the Death Star that can accept challenges with a 2-up armor save. So if I go up against somebody who's only got an AP3 close combat weapon, I can accept the challenge with him, and now you're not putting wounds on the Herald and you're not putting wounds on my Sorcerers who had no saves. You're then chipping away at 2+ armor. So there's a lot of different plays with this sideboard. And I actually used this one in the majority of my games, I believe. It was 6 games I used. Yeah, I'll go through that later. And then my final sideboard was another 2 Sorcerers. So both Mastery Level 3, both Power Fists, both Force Stave, both Bikes, and both Veterans of Long War, and one of them had a Spell Familiar. So that was basically if I noticed that my opponent had no anti-psycho whatsoever, I would go, you know what, I'm going balls to the wall Sorcerers, and I'm going to make a freaking super duper Death Star, and I'm going to smash face. It was also sort of a anti-Death Star list, simply because with these guys in, my Death Star is going to be better than most, you know, equal to or better than most other Death Stars. So I look at what they're bringing, and I think if I have 5 Sorcerers in there, and a Herald, and 20 Hounds, all with every power you could imagine, because now I've got 15 Mastery levels, so you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get every power it is that you want. You know, is that going to be enough to beat out their Death Star? And more often than not, I thought, yeah, it will. Or it should. So that was my third sideboard, is the word I'm looking for. So I played 6 games and I used almost all of the sideboards twice. I definitely used all of them once, so I got to play with it all, which is really good. It's a really good statement to have the diversity of the sideboards. But yes, so I'm going to leave it there. That's the end of part 1, and I will now jump into part 2, and I'll go through first game, second game, and third game. And I'll go through the lists that my opponent brought, as well as what games we did, and a rough recap of how the game went. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2. Alrighty, guys. Apologies, I just need something to add to that first video. I forgot to go through the psychic powers. And how do you do a Death Star without psychic powers? So, I had intended on doing this as part of the first video, so I'm just going to tack it on the end because, you know, organised. So basically I had in my core list, which I'm just going to pull up now so that I know what I'm talking about. In my core list, I had 3 mastery level 3, so I get 9 powers. And then if I chose to go balls to the walls psychic, I had another 2 sorcerers with another 3, so a total of 15 warp charge points. So every single game, the first power that I went with was rolled 4 was endurance. Endurance is absolutely crucial in a Cyclopia Cabal Fleshhound Death Star because it gives you Eternal Warrior, which immediately means those Fleshhounds aren't getting instant killed by anything. So that turns the 20 model unit into a 40 wound unit that they have to deal with, which is a massive, like it literally doubles the size of the unit. So against small arm fire, it's not going to matter. You're going to do the same because bolters don't worry about instant death anyway. But against anything stronger than that, it makes you twice as hard to kill. And then against anything like a bolter, you get 4 up feeling the pain. So again, it makes you twice as hard to kill. So either way, no matter which direction you look at it, no matter what weapon you're getting shot with, endurance will make the Death Star twice as hard to kill. And there's not many things that can do that. So endurance is absolute must. Always the first power that I went for, and it was always the first power that I rolled. And the reason that I always rolled that first is because I'd roll it on, it's warp charge 2. I would always roll it on about 6 or 7 of my dice, depending on how many I have, but I would always throw a lot at it. Simply because I do not want my opponent having any chance at denying it. So I want it to go off on 4 or 5 and then tell them, I don't care how many warp charge you have, try rolling 5 or 6 sixes, you know, it's not going to happen. So also, it's really good because they knew how crucial it was, so they would always try and deny it. So they would then waste all of their warp charge trying to deny that power. And then when I'm rolling things like Sanctuary and stuff like that, and I only need 1 warp charge, I just roll 1 dice. And if I got it, I got it. And they don't have a chance to deny it because they used it all trying to stop endurance. So endurance is absolute key. It is absolute key. Then, from there, I went on telepathy, or depending on my opponent, this was different. If I was going up against a shooting army that I knew was going to try and shoot me off the table early, I'd go on telepathy so that I'd get invisibility and shrouded. Always wanted those 2. Shrouded is fantastic because it gives, if they're in cover or something like that, or if they're not in cover, you put the bikes at the front and you get a 2-up jig. So all of those warp spiders, yeah, they're hitting you, and yeah, they're wounding you, but you've got 2-up jig. So they're substantially less likely to kill you. And then you get a 4-up feel no pain at the end of that. So very tough to kill. And the other one was invisibility, which is obvious. That meant that Tau suits and stuff like that, your marker lights hitting me on 6s. So yeah, you can try and light up the Death Star, but you're not gonna. So those 2 powers from telepathy, if I was going up against an army where I was concerned about their firepower, if I was going up against something where I was concerned about its ability to do damage in combat, invisibility wasn't necessary because the way they ran it in this tournament was it wasn't hit on a 6, it was you are weapon skill 1. So you'd be hitting on 5s. So a lot of things that you're versing are going to hit you on 4s. So really going from a 4 to a 5 isn't a massive change. It did help, but it wasn't massive. It wasn't anything, worth going, oh god, invisibility. It was a nice boost, but it was nothing major. So if I was going up against a combat army, I would roll on one of the new charts and try to get the reroll armor saves, or saving throws, because that allows me to reroll on my 2-up Duke if I get it. It also allows me to reroll my armor save or my vulnerable save. So if I got 4-up invulnerable save on my hounds, I could reroll that, and then if I fail the reroll, then I have a Feel No Pain roll. So it's 4-up, 4-up, 4-up. That makes it very hard to remove. So it was if I was a shooting army, I'd go telepathy, and if I was against a combat army, I'd go whatever the new chart's called, ectomancy, I think it might have been, or something, I don't know. I really should have had them up on the screen over there, that side, sorry. I'd go with those against the new powers against combat army, the telepathy against a shooting army. Then, once I've done that, and got the spell going from there, I'd then go on to Sanctic Demonology. And the reason I went with Sanctic was because I wanted Hammerhand is a nice power to have, because that makes all your flesh hands strength 6, 7 on the charge. And it also makes your power fists strength 10, which is good for anti-tank or anti-imperial knight. And it also makes your herald strength 8 or 9, depending if he charges. So that's a significant boost as well. So Hammerhand is very good. Sanctuary is also very good. It does make all demons treat all terrain as dangerous, but flesh hands being beasts, they ignore that anyway. So that's, it just pluses 1 to the invulnerable save of the entire unit, which means your flesh hands now have 4-up invulnerable save, which 4-up invulnerable with 4-up Feel No Pain is very tough to move. And they're both also fantastic because they're only mastery level 1, and I almost always rolled Sanctic Demonology on this one, simply because he has that spell familiar. So you've got Sanctuary, which is a single warp charge, you just need to roll 1 dice at it. So the chances of you perils is 0. Because those ones being Sanctic Demonology, you perils on any double. So you just don't want to roll 2 dice at it. You want to wait until your opponent has no more dice left to deny with, and then you go, boom, I'm rolling up my Sanctic powers now. Also, Vortex is fun. I don't necessarily think it's a strong option, but it's a fun option. Gate of Infinity is good if you happen to be in a combat that you're worried about, or, and I actually use it to this quite effectively, if it comes to the end of the game, you think it's turn 5, it's going to end, or it's turn 6, it's going to end now, you can separate off the sorcerer that has Gate of Infinity, and then use Gate to jump on an objective on the other side of the field that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to get. So that can get you a lot of victory points really fast, just by having Gate. Gate's really good. So Gate's good, Hammerhand's good, Sanctuary's good, Cleansing Flame is also quite good because it allows the Death Star to do something that it generally isn't great at, and that's engage multiple units at once. You put the Death Star in the middle of the board, charge up into everything, and you go boom, Cleansing Flame, hits fucking everybody. That's really powerful. And then what else have they got? Banishment is funny, because I'm casting it from Chaos Army, but if I come up against other demons, Banishment is quite good. There's lots of good powers. Almost all of the powers in Sanctic Demonology are quite effective. So I like that tree. I could have gone Malefic Demonology and gone Cursed Earth, which is going to be essentially the same as Sanctuary. It's going to give me the +1 invulnerable save to all my demons. And then the other ones are all your summoning, your incursion, and those sorts of ones. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't. Because I'm Corn Demonkin for that Death Star, anything that they kill is going to generate blood types. So if I want to summon it into blood letters, I don't need to waste warp charge to do it. I can just summon one. So, which was generally what I saved all my blood type for, was those summoning units. Summon them late in the game so your opponent doesn't have the opportunity to kill them, and you just summon them and plonk them on an objective. It just gives you your army the ability to expand when you need it to. So generally speaking, those were the trees that I go. First would be all on Biomancy until I get Endurance. I don't even care if it takes all 3 sorcerers. If I haven't got Endurance, the Death Star falls apart. So I would just keep going on it. Luckily, in every single one of my 6 games, the first sorcerer that I rolled up got Endurance. Which is not massively surprising, because they do have a 50-50 chance of getting it. So it was pretty statistically significant, but yeah, I was quite lucky with that. And then, yeah, then after I've got my Endurance, always go for whichever one of the 2 defensive powers is going to benefit you the most, whether it be the telepathy to get invisibility and shrouding if you're going up against the shooting army, or whether it be the new powers to try and get reroll armor saves, or reroll saving throws. The other one that's really good is Null Zone in that one, which, funnily enough, you can combine with Banishment, so you go up against a Scenic guy who's got a 3-up save, which rerolls 1s. And you go, you know, I'm going to banish that, so it's now a 4-up save, and then I'm going to Null Zone it, so now it's a 6-up save, so you can have that, and then you can reroll your 1s. So it makes it, those units that are really, really tough to get through, it makes them a lot easier if you happen to go against demons, so, or against Grey Knights or something like that. Null Zone is also very good in that tree, and there's a few other ones. There's the one that's sort of the Love Child, Warp Speed, and Iron Arm, where they get +2 to Strength, Toughness, Attacks, and Initiative. That one's really good, especially if you've got a challenge coming up. You can go, you know what, I'm going to buff this sorcerer and I'm going to challenge. Iron Arm is also really good on these sorcerers in particular because the Power Fist strikes at Initiative 1, whereas if I get Iron Arm, that gives me +3 to Strength and Smash. So I then use the Force Maul, which gives me another +2, so now I'm +5, so I'm Strength 9, AP 2, and I'm striking an Initiative. So that's really good. If I was ever going to do a challenge that I thought was going to be a hard one, like against a Dread Knight, you go, okay, I'm going to cast Iron Arm, and then I'm going to charge the Dread Knight. So, Iron Arm's great. What else is there to say with the powers, other than the Shroud of Deceit, which, for those of you who don't know what the Shroud of Deceit is, that's the power that you get in a Cyclopean Cabal. It's basically a Warp Charge 3 Malediction, where you get 1 additional Warp Charge dice for every sorcerer that's within 12 inches of the caster. So if I had all 5 of them, and I cast with the guy in the middle, since there's 4 sorcerers within 12, he gets an additional 4 dice. So I'd always save this one till last, and generally I'd save 1 dice left, and then I'd add 4, because there's 4 sorcerers. I would always cast it with one of the guys that has the spell familiar, so that you can reroll it. So now you're rolling 5 dice, rerollable to get a 3-up, a Warp Charge 3. So pretty reliably went off. And it allows you to take 1 enemy unit and make a shooting attack with it against another unit, essentially as if it's your own model. That actually got me first blood in 2 games. 1 game. Sorry, trying to remember. Got me first blood in 1 game. But it was it got me Slay the Warlord in a game as well. So it was very useful. Situational, because some armies just lacked the shooting power for it to be even worth it. There's a couple of games where I just didn't even cast it at all. But yeah, situational, but when it is useful, it's very useful. So that's also a power you've got to remember you have. I did make a few mistakes with my psychic powers. I kept forgetting that I have Force, and that would have been huge help against a couple of the armies that I faced, but I kept going, oh shit, now I'm in combat. Damn it, why didn't I cast Force? Because it would have made my mauls instant killing things, but it didn't really matter too much. It would have made some of my victories a little bit easier, I guess, but yeah, it wasn't too big of an issue. Other than that, I think I did pretty well with the psychic powers. It is a lot to think about when you're playing a psychic Death Star, because you've got to know which power, because sometimes you've only got enough. If you roll, you know how at the start of your psychic phase you roll a dice and you get that many warp charge plus your mastery levels. If you only roll a 1, yeah, your opponent only has 1 dice plus their mastery levels to try and deny with, so you're not likely to get denied. But now you don't have enough warp charge to reliably cast all of the powers that you want. So you've got to then think, okay, well, what is super important? What is nice? I think now, after having played 6 games back to back, I now know what is needed and what is nice. But going into the tournament, I had a pretty good idea, because I played a few games with the Cabal, but not enough to be that confident. So there was a little bit more thinking involved on, okay, hang on, so I need to make sure I get endurance because you've got some strength 8 shooting. I don't necessarily need invisibility because you're firing with blasts, and in this version they allow blasts to hit invisible units. So there was a bit of thinking involved. And then you've also got to try and think which ones are they going to deny, which ones are they not. So yeah, I think I did pretty well though. So, which you can see that in my results. I mean, I wouldn't have done as well as I did if I was making those kinds of stupid mistakes. So I think that's enough about the psychic powers. So now, without further ado, I'm going to jump into second video, and we'll discuss the games and whatnot, like I said I was going to do 20 minutes ago. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
One for the blood god.